We operate in a world defined by noise, a relentless, competitive din, where airtime is mistaken for authority, and verbal diarrhea is celebrated as engagement. Every man is urged to lean in, speak up, and ensure his perspective. However, half-formed is known immediately. But for the serious man, the man who understands the architecture of true strength, this cacophony is merely an indicator of weakness, a collective fear of the void. The most potent power move available to the modern man is not found in the eloquent argument or the quick retort, but in the deliberate, immovable stillness of silence. It is the fortress wall that repels the petty siege of social pressure. This is the ultimate Stoic discipline, not merely to refrain from speaking, but to harness the energy of that restraint and repurpose it into presence. The first diagnostic sign of a man wielding this silent power is the anatomy of his controlled response. Most of the people operate on a hair trigger, a stimulus and insult, a challenge, an unexpected complication triggers an immediate, defensive, verbal explosion. This reaction is biological, it is instinctual, and it is entirely predictable, making the man who employs it easily manipulated. The man of quiet strength, however, operates within a psychological chasm between the stimulus and the response. He introduces a deliberate, measured delay, a pause that can last 1 second or 1 minute in which the mind performs a ruthless inventory of options. It is the difference between a reflex and a calculation. When an executive or a peer throws a barb designed to destabilize, the untrained man feels the rush of blood and retaliates, sacrificing strategic ground for temporary emotional satisfaction. The silent man absorbs the barb, not defensively, but analytically. He studies the aggressor's body language, assesses the true intent is this genuine aggression, or merely insecurity masquerading as dominance, and, most importantly, he gauges the optimal outcome for himself, regardless of his temporary feeling of offense. This pause is the moment where control is seized, where the heat of the moment is converted into cold, effective energy. It means that when he finally speaks, his words are not reactionary effluent. They are highly concentrated solutions, delivered precisely where they cause the greatest, most lasting impact. If the goal of power is to influence the future, the silent man achieves it by refusing to let the present dictate his mouth. Secondly, the man who commands through quietude has successfully completed the evisceration of the ego that demands constant validation. The need to speak is overwhelmingly driven by the need to be witnessed, to prove one's existence or intelligence to the room. It is a psychological tether that binds a man to external approval. The man who embraces deep silence severs this tether. He diagnoses the chatterer as suffering from a fear of being irrelevant, man perpetually trying to fill the air before someone else fills it first. The silent man knows his inherent worth is fixed, cemented by his actions and his character, not by his latest verbal contribution. He is content to let others exhaust their intellectual capital, their time, and their social currency, proving their points, while he conserves his own. Consider the dynamic in any high-stakes meeting. There is the man who speaks first and loudest, detailing every flaw in the plan, demonstrating his quick wit, only to find that 2 minutes later the meeting has shifted and his premature pronouncements now hang in the air, exposed and irrelevant. Then there is the silent anchor at the end of the table, the man who has said nothing, yet everyone waits for his eventual pronouncement. His silence has created a vacuum of expectation. People project competence onto that void. They assume he is not silent because he is empty, but because he is operating on a level of awareness that transcends the conversation currently underway. He has mastered the fundamental truth that often the highest form of power is the power of being the final word, the one who synthesizes the chaos into the necessary decree, rather than contributing to the initial confusion. He diagnoses the situation, he does not perform for it. This leads directly to the third characteristic, the profound projection of depth. Noise reduces complexity. Every sentence uttered chips away at the mystery of the speaker. The man who speaks incessantly becomes a known quantity. His strategy is transparent, his emotional vulnerabilities mapped. Silence, conversely, amplifies mystery and creates perceived weight. It is the strategic ambiguity of a fortress whose interior is unknown to the besieger. When a man maintains stillness, others are forced to ask, what does he know that I do not? What is he thinking that he chooses not to reveal? This internal question grants the silent man an instant, unearned psychological advantage. His quietness is interpreted not as ignorance, but as highly selective intelligence. We diagnose the constant talker as a man whose resources are cheap and readily available. He gives his opinions freely, his emotional responses immediately, and his strategic vision is exhausted within the first 5 minutes of conversation. The silent man, by contrast, establishes his words as currency. His contributions become rare and therefore valuable. When he finally interrupts the flow, and it is always an interruption, a deliberate break in the momentum, the entire weight of his prior restraint is carried in that single sentence. The room snaps to attention because they know he is not speaking to hear himself, but because the necessary threshold for his engagement has finally been crossed. This quiet mastery forces the audience to adjust to his pace and his tempo, rather than him chasing the frenetic energy of the crowd. He becomes the gravitational center, not the orbital satellite. Finally, the most powerful aspect of silence is its function as a tool for weaponized listening and data collection. Many men believe they are listening, but they are merely waiting for their turn to speak, rehearsing their rebuttal or polishing their anecdote. The man of quiet strength uses silence proactively. His stillness is a disciplined, hyper-focused state of reception. He understands that every word spoken by another person is a transmission of raw intelligence vulnerabilities, insecurities, hidden agendas, and operational intent. By remaining quiet, he encourages the other party to keep talking, to overshare, to reveal the architecture of their motivations. If you speak, you reveal your hand. If you listen, you see, Consider the master negotiator. He does not rush in with his offer. He asks questions, then retreats into silence, allowing the other side to fill the void with rationalizations, anxieties, and ultimately, concessions they were not initially prepared to make. The silence becomes a pressure point, a psychological device that forces the other party to negotiate against their own discomfort with the vacuum. The quiet man is not merely observing the conversation. He is mapping the topography of the room, identifying who is weak, who is reliable, who is motivated by ego, and who is driven by genuine principle. This comprehensive situational awareness, gathered while everyone else is busy signaling their momentary cleverness, is the foundation for every truly decisive action taken later. He collects all the necessary coordinates before he fires his shot. His silence is the strategy room, and when he finally emerges to act, his move is predicated not on assumption, but on observed, empirical data. To adopt this practice is to move from being a reactive participant to a detached strategist. It demands an initial sacrifice, the immediate satisfaction of being right, of being noticed. But what you gain is far greater: the mastery of your own internal landscape and the external perception of unshakable competence. Stop expending your valuable energy chasing the fleeting attention that noise provides. Instead, build your silent citadel. Let the noise of the world batter against your walls, knowing that only when the chaos subsides and when the moment truly demands, immutable force, will you finally choose to speak, and when you do, your words will not be heard, they will be felt, and they will be obeyed. That is the architecture of quiet power.